There we go. Okay, so hi, Adam, and Happy New Year, and welcome. I'm so excited to get to chat with you today.
Well, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here and to chat as well.
So, Adam, we've seen some exciting things going on with your new book, and I know this is not your first book, but this is your first Brick Cave book. And I know that it's gotten some traction in some interesting ways. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, Mariner's Wake is my first novel with Brick Cave, and I really enjoyed working on it and the process of writing it, and just loved the story. And we submitted it for a review with Kirkus, and thankfully it came back with a very favorable review. It got a star, which is amazing. And the next part, totally unexpected. Kirkus reached out and they let us know that the book was selected as one of their best indie books of 2021, which is really huge. I mean, it's not something that I had even had on the radar. I know Kirkus does lists every year, but it's some aspirational thing, right? You see books that get on the list and it's just something that happens to other people. But I guess the reviewer just really advocated for the story. They must have really liked it to submit it for that consideration. So just a huge thing, out of the thousands of titles that they review every year. And anybody who knows Kirkus knows that they don't pull punches. This is a publication that is notorious for, just being very honest about what they think about titles. So yeah, I mean, I was just completely taken back, and I don't even know what to say about it, except that I was incredibly excited, and I still am, and a little bit in disbelief.
Yeah, so that was going to be my next thing. How does it feel? Right.
Yeah, and I mean, it feels great. I think, you know, um, being an indie author, you're sort of used to operating kind of on the fringes where you have, in our ecosystem, there are a lot of very big fish. And then there's the rest of us kind of swimming on the edges, really just trying to make it. And I think a lot of us do it because we love it more than anything else. I love telling stories. I love writing. I love everything about it. So getting that kind of validation was incredible. I mean, as much as I would love to be Joe Cool and be like, I don't care what people think. I mean, to an extent, we do. We want to create stories that people are going to read and people are going to like. So to get this sort of impartial feedback from somebody whose job is to review books and make recommendations to other professionals, to the institutions, the libraries, the bookstores, and say, hey, these are great books. For them to say, this was not only a book I really enjoyed, but it's one of the best of the year, just amazing.
Yeah. So, and back to your point about, yes, we want to connect with readers. We want stories that engage. We're trying to communicate something through our writing. And if people aren't engaging with it, then we're not doing our jobs. And I have to say that working with you has been an extreme pleasure for me on the editorial side, because you are so receptive and open to that kind of feedback. When the feedback that we went through developmentally on the book was about, deeper engagement, a little more emotion. Can you push this here? And, can we get inside this character just a bit more? You were very open to it. And that's exciting for me as a developmental editor and as a writer myself to be part of that process. And I like to believe that I'm also open and receptive to that kind of feedback. I feel like my editor and I have a great relationship. But yeah, you pushed it, and you went that deeper level. And it was very exciting for me to see, when all was said and done, that one of the comments made was that it resonated on a deeper level. I think it was more depth than the depth charges, or
Yes.
something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I,
so
I
that's
love that too. And I do thank you for those editorial remarks, because you're right. It's a process where we have to trust each other, and also be receptive. It's easy to get very defensive about our work and to say, if you leave a comment, for example, that says, hey, this doesn't really seem in character, or I'm not really understanding what the motivation behind this decision is, for example. I could get defensive about that and say, well, it's perfectly obvious the way I wrote it, right? But, you have to take it in the spirit in which it was given, which is, here's an editor who is trying to make the story the best it can be. And this is their first read through. They don't have the characters living in their head the same way that
Right.
I do. You're approaching it cold, basically, and you're using all of your professional experience to say, you know, I read through this, something didn't feel right to me, and I'm identifying what didn't feel right. And, maybe we can make this better. So there's a little bit of ego that has to get dropped there too, I think, on the side of the writer to say, you know, okay, honestly, can this be improved? And if it can, then why wouldn't I do that? You know?
Right.
And I do struggle a bit. I think when I first started writing, a lot, many, many years ago, um, I had a tendency to take everybody's feedback at face value, and that has its own way of destroying your stories, right? And then you can go too far on the other end and not listen to anybody. And I think, at this point in my career, I feel like I've got a good balance of staying right there in the middle. And I think it's testament to your editing abilities that, when you gave me that sort of feedback, it I reflected on it and it felt right to me. It wasn't like, I thought about it and no, maybe this isn't, I'm going to stick with it the way it is. I would take some time with it. And ultimately, I think just about all the real developmental comments that you made, they made sense to me, you know? And so, from my side of things, thank you for doing that and, creating such powerful editorial feedback. But, I definitely agree. Um, that's part of the relationship between the editor and the writer that can strengthen a story. And I feel like we got that right with Mariner's Wake.
I agree. I also, feel like I am very aware as a writer how it feels to be edited. And I think I bring that to my process and I also know that sometimes I think I got it on the page when I didn't get it on the page. And so I'm always looking for those opportunities because I'm familiar with a lot of my own slips and biases as a writer. And also I like to give, good constructive feedback. I'm not trying to tell you, if it's good or bad, just, hey, I think we can tweak this up a level, right? And bring it to the reader in another way or a deeper way. And I think that's really critical. And that's the kind of editorial feedback that I seek. And so it's the type of editorial feedback that I like to give. And pardon my office mates as they decide who gets to
No.
sit in which chair over here. That's a constant battle. Um,
Yeah.
so that said, we you mentioned a little bit about getting comments when people make comments about the work and how to take that. And I did see that someone made a comment in one of the reviews about hoping that there would be more books in this world. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that.
Oh, certainly. I mean, it's very open-ended in the sense that, I feel like the story itself, Mariner's Wake, comes to a good conclusion. I didn't want to write a story that ended on a cliffhanger or some other cheesy device. Um, but, there's so much of a world there that the stories are just kind of endless, right? They can just bubble up from all over the place. There's a lot of sources of conflict. There are a lot of challenges that these people are going to face. And, and in my opinion, a lot of interesting things happening there. So yeah, I mean, there absolutely could be a lot of, stories that come out of that in the future. Have I written anything? No, but I definitely have like the seeds for a lot of these stories. And it's really just at this point, a matter of outlining, carving out the time, and really engaging in that writing process again.
Right. Well, first of all, I have to give you kudos for the unintended pun of things bubbling up because
Water,
Mayor's Mike
yeah,
is so water based.
yeah.
And it is a rich world. And I'm excited to hear that you have thoughts and ideas for other stories because I really really enjoyed this book. You are a very strong writer. You have a lot of skill that you bring to the work and a lot of creativity that you bring to the work. And so it's been just glorious for me to work with you and to read your work and to get to be a part of that. So thank you so much for creating Mariner's Wake and Kara's World, and for being part of the Brick Cave family. We're excited to have you, and I really am looking forward to what's coming next.
Well, thank you. And it's great to be a part of the Brick Cave team. And, thank you very much for bringing me on board and taking a chance on Mariner's Wake.